Welcome back to Triple Threat Podcast. My name is William and joining alongside me today is Ishan Seth. Hello, Ishan.
What's good?
And today we've got breaking news in the NFL. We've got scrimmages happening in the NBA bubble, and that's pretty much what we have to talk to you about today. So let's start it off with the breaking news. Jamal Adams is traded to the Seattle Seahawks for Bradley McDougald, 2 first-round picks, and a 2021 third-rounder. What are your initial thoughts of the trade as a perspective of a Jamal Adams perspective and a perspective of both teams?
So, for Jamal Adams, he's able to get out of New York, which is good for pretty much any competent NFL player. And then he goes to a contender, and he's gonna have to play against DeAndre Hopkins twice a year. He's gonna have to go up against the receiving duo of Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. He's gonna have
and Van Jefferson.
And Van Jefferson, and then whatever San Francisco throws at them, which is going to be something obviously pretty good. And so he's going to have a challenge now compared to the AFC East. Or no dog on them, but I feel like this is going to be more challenging.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really excited to see this. And my question now is, are they on the same tier as San Francisco or New Orleans? Because to me, those are the top two teams in the NFC. And Seattle is like my third in that like 1B or tier 2. And I think that with Jamal Adams, they really have a chance to push San Francisco and New Orleans, which they were already kind of doing. And then from both teams, obviously Seattle gets a guy to anchor their defense. I feel like it was a little bit much given their need at the defensive line. But with that, Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright, and then their secondary is pretty solid with guys like Shaquille Griffin and then Dunbar. We'll see what happens to him. And obviously led by Pete Carroll, so I think that's pretty good. And then the Jets get some building blocks to use for the future, as their Super Bowl window is not within the next 5 years.
Well, going back to that question, is Seattle part of that top tier of the NFC? And I say they're most definitely not, because the most important parts of a team are your quarterback, which Seattle definitely has a top 3 quarterback, your offensive line, and your defensive line. You want to build through the lines with depth and with quality. And with Seattle, I just don't see depth or quality, even with the starting group. You have your LJ Collier, who you drafted last year as a first rounder, who didn't show glimpses of what he was capable of being.
3 tackles.
You have Jerron Reed and Bruce Irving finishing up that defensive line. I just can't see that as a group that contends. When you lose Jadeveon Clowney, who was your only real difference maker, even when he was off the field, like you saw in that San Francisco game last season, that he really was the heart and soul of that defense when he was healthy. I mean, he had that core muscle injury, I think it was, that set him out for most of the season, but he was the player making most of the difference. I don't think Bobby Wagner is going to be able to disrupt quarterbacks and cause. Their secondary is not good enough to get pressure to get secondary coverage sacks. So I just see opposing quarterbacks like Kyler Murray just running all over them, because even if you use Bobby Wagner or KJ Wright or Jordan Brooks or Jamal Adams on a QB spy, I just don't see the quality of this defense being able to outlast the teams in their division. So
you have San Francisco, their offensive line, and they have a multitude of running backs and rushing weapons that they can throw at you. As you said, Kyler Murray, Kenyon Drake, and then
Cam Akers.
Cam Akers. And, San Fran has a very solid line. And then, as you said, with the offensive line,
it's just pitiful.
You're going up against Aaron Donald twice a year, Chandler Jones twice a year, and then Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, all of San Francisco twice a year. So you're going up against arguably 3 top 5 pass rushers for 2020.
And then they've got teams like the Patriots and the Vikings on their schedule. Cowboys, who have a much improved defensive line. The Bills, they have Eagles. That's okay. That's pretty much it. But they have
Fowler Jr. and the Falcons.
I was just gonna brush over that one, but Grady Jarrett can cause a lot of problems. You saw Tom Brady had a lot of problems with him in the Super Bowl. But I've said this before about the Seattle roster being poor, and then Russell Wilson carries them to the playoffs every year. But this team isn't up to the standards that Russell Wilson's Super Bowl teams were. So this is purely just Russell Wilson making magic. I can see them making a playoff berth. I can't see them winning the division, or if they do win the division, I can't see them making it past the divisional round of the playoffs.
So, in terms of Seattle in the Super Bowl window, how close is it to like officially closing? I guess.
I'd say it's closed. I mean, I think that with Russell Wilson, anything's possible. But you saw last year in the playoffs when they played, they at home against a Carson Wentzless Eagles team had 3 quarters to put him away, and Josh McCown, with half a muscle left still in his leg, was able to keep the Eagles in that game. I mean, there's a reason why that game was close, even though DK Metcalf was just burning the Eagles secondary the entire time. They had a clear mismatch in that game, exploited it, and still had a close competition. And then you look at the games against Green Bay, Russ Wilson's going to keep it close, but the overall quality of the roster, even though that Russ Wilson and Aaron Rodgers are equally matched quarterbacks, Rodgers had a much superior team around him, and that showed in the final score. So even adding a top 3, top 2 safety in the league in Jamal Adams, I don't think that is going to have that much of a benefit on the team. I mean, we've seen the safety position is clinically undervalued, even though Jamal Adams might be a top 10 defensive player. I can't see that really keep giving them the crown over teams like San Francisco, New Orleans, Dallas, Green Bay, Minnesota. I just can't see them taking the crown over that because those teams up at the top are really elite, and I don't see this as an elite roster at this time. They've got elite pieces. It's not an elite roster.
Yeah. And, a lot of people say you got to build from the inside out. And they have a lot of solid skill position players, DK, Tyler Lockett. They got now Jamal Adams and Bobby Wagner. But as you said, in the trenches where it really does matter, that's where they're lacking. And that's where they don't really have the firepower or the juice to get to the next level.
I mean, you look at the teams last year who are the best. You see the Saints, one of the best offensive lines of football, one of the best, or they had the third most sacks in the defensive line. You look at San Francisco, that was a dominant group up there.
Yeah.
And then you have Minnesota, who had a great defensive line. They didn't have the best offensive line. You look at Green Bay, had a great defensive line with the Smith brothers, and then you always obviously have Kenny Clark in the middle. You look at Dallas has a great – I mean, they didn't do great last year. We can't really say that. But New England had a great both sides of the ball. I mean, the teams Baltimore, they got one of the best offensive lines in football. How do we forget about
name
them?
the contenders at this point.
Yeah, and all the best teams go through the trenches, and I think that's something that Seattle should have realized a long time ago. Russ Wilson can hide a lot of the flaws of the offensive line, but with any other quarterback, this would be maybe a 7 or 8 win team. With Russ Wilson, they can win 11.
And I think after that Max Unger trade, you really saw how much their lines got exploited, or their offensive line got exploited by.
And then you saw that brought the Saints back up from 7 and 9 obscurity with Max Unger. You saw that.
Yeah.
They shipped off some dead weight in Jimmy Graham, who was declining and was less physical than he ever was. You get a good centerpiece, and no pun intended, they became 13-3 back-to-back seasons. I mean, he missed last year, but he was part of 2 great playoff runs. So,
yeah. And then second, Laurent Duvernay-Tardif. He has opted out of his contract, correct? And will be working full-time in the medical field for COVID relief in Canada, I believe.
What I heard today is that players that opt out of the season will be given like $150,000 check, and their contract will be moved to the forward season. So say he has 3 years left on his deal, this year won't count against his contract, and he'll have 3 more years. I mean, I don't know what his contract situation is right now. But I have to give mad shout out to Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, and his philosophy was, if I'm going to expose myself, I might as well do it for something that matters. So I think that it's a move that a lot of people can't take because the financial security of the NFL is so important nowadays that getting that $2.7 million that he was going to get this season was going to be incredibly important. And for any person to turn that down and to say, I want to fight the cause that matters, there's millions of cases worldwide, and if I can be part of the solution, I should be able to do that. If I have the skills to do that, I should be able to. So it's a great move. It's easy to say, oh, I'm on the best roster. Let me just come back and we can run it back and win another Super Bowl. But he says, I'm gonna be the good person and I'm gonna do it. So if anyone deserves the Walter Payton Man of the Year this year, I don't know how anyone can out outbeat Laura Duvernay Tardif what he did.
Yeah, exactly. And I think FSU player and FSU standout NFL player Myron Rolle did a similar thing, where now he went to FSU as the number one player in the country. He's a safety, and while at FSU, he pursued his medical degree. That's why he stayed 4 years, and now he is actually working in a hospital for COVID relief. And that's, you know what, I have a lot of respect for that. Giving yourself up for a good cause and not doing obviously the sexiest thing playing in the NFL, but doing something that's going to make an impact that still makes you good money and helps the world out.
But he is an incredible person. I think he was when he retired, he became a neurosurgeon, and I, this is something that I can't even fathom. Something I couldn't even fathom working with surgery and the nervous system. I mean, that's something that only the top of the top intellectuals can.
Yeah, I'm clumsy as hell. I can't do that.
No, the precision, the accuracy.
It's crazy.
I mean, he Myron Rolle and Laura Duvernay Tardif are serving the front lines of this country, and but for that we praise both of them. So they did sign a replacement in Kelechi Osemele, and I would argue that he's probably an upgrade if he can maintain or regain the form of his past, because there was a stretch between 2014 and 2017 where he was a top 10 guard in the entire NFL, and he got all-pro honors 2 of those seasons. So I think the problem is that last year when he went to the Jets, they mismanaged his injury to the highest extent. He got into fault with the coaching staff. I mean, that wasn't his fault, I don't believe, and he got cut unfairly. So I was really excited when the Jets signed him because I thought that he would be a part of their trying to fix Sam Darnold because he needed the offensive line help. I thought Kelechi Osemele, they were getting a top guard in him. Was injured the year before, came in on a cheap deal. I thought they were going to get a great player out of Kelechi, but he went to the Chiefs, and I think he's probably happy what happened last year now that he's on one of the best teams in the entire league, and will have a pretty easy job considering that he has got Pat Mahomes back there that can get the ball out quick, or even if he does let up pressure, will just dodge away and throw a left-handed no-look pass behind his back. So I think Kelechi is going to be a great player, and I truly believe that he's going to regain the form that he had back in 2014 with the Raiders. So I'd be really excited to see what this team does, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if he gets signed on a long-term deal after this year, because they could definitely use some cheap contracts after signing all their players. And how on earth did they manage to pay Chris Jones? That makes no sense to me. They had $167 in cap a month ago. They signed Pat Mahomes to $500 million and Chris Jones at $25 a year.
Yeah, they were very flexible in the long term. And I think before the season started, after giving up D Ford, they had the most cap room in the NFL. Well, actually, ironically, San Francisco had the least at the season start. So I thought that was interesting.
And yeah, I credit Brett Beach with that, making the front-loaded contract with Mahomes so it would be cheaper on the front end and putting it all into a lot of add-on bonuses with the base salary and a couple millions, and having the guarantees and the roster bonuses be a lot higher. But anyway, with the cap wizardry, let's go on to some NBA, and we've had two scrimmages for each team so far, I believe.
Yeah, I think a few have gone one, but I think right now there are some games going on as we speak.
And we've got one more to go until the season starts on Thursday, I believe.
The 30th.
Is it Thursday or Wednesday?
Thursday. July 30th.
Well, we will see Zion back because he has re-entered the bubble after attending some Family Matters, and we never found out what the issue was. And I just want to my prayers are with the Williamson family, whatever medical emergency happened that caused him to leave. But I'm glad he's back as a Pelicans fan, the resident Pelicans fan of the podcast. I could not be more excited that the NBA finagled our team in here, and our team now has a shot to make the playoffs. So
yeah,
So let's start off with the Pelicans. Last night they played the Nuggets, and we saw one of our standout performers of the preseason so far in Manute Bul's son, Bull, a player both
Oh
you and
yes.
I were high on before the draft. I think I had him as a top 6 player in the draft.
I think on
So,
our big board we had him high. On the mock draft we had him in the late lottery.
so I
But
think this is someone that we are both very high on.
yeah, he's averaged like 15 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 blocks. Now his efficiency, field goal percentage is in the 30s, 3-point percentage is in the high 20s. It's not great, but if you're shooting 15 points on that efficiency, you're taking a lot of shots, which shows that he's fully recovered and he has the confidence to even bother taking those shots, which I'm happy for. That efficiency is going to kind of develop over time. And, working with Nikola Jokic, a very ball dominant player, is not the best situation for a guy who's playing his first couple of games in the NBA. But I'm really excited to see Bol and Michael Porter Jr. fully recover and just wreak some havoc.
What do you make of the Nuggets' changes going into this Western Conference? Because they have one of the better rosters in the NBA. They got Slim Jokic. They've got a lot of Jamal,
Harper
Gary
Hunter.
Harris, and then they've got the Plumlees, or one of the Plumlees, Mason, I believe.
Yeah,
But
Paul Millsap. They have a good roster.
they
Very
do.
good roster.
I think isn't Millsap the only player over like 26 or something like that?
No, I feel like Jokic is over 26, but
I don't think he is.
I feel like one of the Plumlees definitely is.
The Plumlees definitely is. Yeah, you're right about that.
Old men. But they're a good team. They have a star, an All-NBA first-team player, in my opinion, or a guy that's a perennial All-NBA first-team player. They got depth, but this is kind of like they kind of remind me of Milwaukee in the way that they have their star, they have their depth, they have a solid coach, but they don't have that clear second option. Like Jamal Murray has been very inconsistent, and they don't
on
really
and off the court.
Yeah. They don't have a reliable third or fourth option that kind of fluctuates, so we're very uneasy about it. So they remind me of a poor man's Milwaukee, and I think that's where they're going to get exploited, because like when you look at a team like the Lakers, your first and second options are LeBron and AD. They might switch on a given night, but those are the guys that like your team will focus on, and they both have the ability to make their other players better. While Jokic has that, I don't know about a guy like Jamal Murray, who has been a little passive and inconsistent. So I have them as a very good team, but I don't see them going past the divisional round.
And we've got some
divisional round. Did I say divisional round?
You did. Second round of the playoffs.
Semis, yeah.
But we got some G League players that made some great appearances in that game. Troy Daniels and Zealand Cheatham of the Nuggets and Pelicans, respectively. What did you make of Troy Daniels' 28 points last night?
I thought that was. I think it's nice that they're getting that they're giving these G League players a chance. And I don't know. I didn't actually look at the box score for this one. Let me pull it up. Was he efficient?
I can look it up for you. But I can talk about Zealand Cheatham for a little bit here. But
Zealand Cheatham, I like since college.
So
he's very athletic.
Incredibly athletic, very slim frame, very freakish athletic. But the Pelicans had Josh Gray and Zealand Cheatham, who they wanted to get onto the roster. So they argued that they should get these G League players to come inside the bubble as well and become part of the roster. So they got that to happen. And Cheatham has been impressive in both games, showing off his athleticism. And I think that his performance last night let me get up real quick. I think Cheatham had 14 points with a plus-minus of +4 on 71% efficiency. So I was really impressed with what he did last night. I think that this Pelicans roster is probably the deepest it's ever been, and probably better than whatever we had with Anthony Davis, because we might have had a better starting five with obviously Etwan Moore, Drew Holiday, Boogie, AD, and then hopefully we slot in Rondo sometimes. Yeah. Rondo point guard, Drew shooting guard, and then Etwan plays small forward. Yeah. I think this roster is probably deeper and much better overall because we have players like Nico Melli, Derek Favors, You bring in Jackson Hayes, Etwan Moore, Frank Jackson,
Big
Kenrich
Jaw.
Williams, Big Jaw. That's your third string center right there. I mean, that's some
That's
great
impressive.
depth. That's really great
hmm
depth that the Pelicans have acquired over this last season.
And this is
And then,
young depth too.
yeah,
Young depth that can grow over time and learn to play together, kind of like Toronto's depth, or another team of that sort.
and then you have Frank Jackson and Nikhil Alexander-Walker, who were incredible last night in the backcourt. And that's something
Keel
that's
went off.
the Keel. So apparently he's grown 3/4 of an inch during quarantine, and
Yeah.
the Pelicans roster overall. I mean, I might be a little biased here, but they look like they're the roster that's benefited most from quarantine. A lot of players healing up from injury, a lot of players bulking up in weight. You look at guys like Joe Okafor, who's jacked now. You look at guys like
Zion.
Brandon Ingram, who's got a lot of weight. Zion, who's lost weight and gained muscle, lost 25 pounds of fat and gained 15 pounds of muscle. You look at this roster and you see that they've been putting in work over quarantine. Lonzo Ball, people were roasting his form, but at least he was working out during quarantine. So
Yeah.
I think this roster is really well made for this bubble environment. And I think that this is a team that, if given the right opportunity and given the time to actually make it into the playoffs, I think they could make some noise, maybe win a first round or maybe even make it to the semis. So I'm really excited to see what this team can do because I'm a Pelicans fan, and I think this is just a really young, exciting roster with up-and-coming stars. And then you got to face the franchise in Zion, who the league finagled into the bubble as any. Like
Yeah.
they easily could have just done the 16 teams that were in the top
I
16,
know.
and they're like, nah, we need Zion to be in the bubble. And I think it was really deservedly so, but because the Pelicans had the easiest remaining schedule and the Grizzlies had the harsh remaining schedule, so I think there was some hope that the Pelicans would have made it in the playoffs regardless. So
That's why I'm rooting for the Grizzlies. I love my boy John Morant.
nah, I gotta get Zion. But
That's my default 2K team now, the Grizzlies.
I can't blame you.
Ja, Jaren, Brendan Clark, another great young core. But the team that I said benefited most from quarantine, I will talk about later. And this is actually my pick to win the East. But for now, let's talk about another Eastern Conference contender, the Philadelphia 76ers. Ben Simmons playing power forward more, and he went 1 for 2 from 3 in
Big improvements.
in his first game. And it was not the Thunder game. It was the Grizzlies game. Went 1 for 2. And after the game, Brett Brown said that he's going to make him shoot 1-3 a game at least to kind of get his confidence back up. And they hired a therapist for him to help him with his perimeter confidence. And so that combined with his improved stroke, because the thing before is he would kind of switch hands mid-form, which would screw up his shot. Now it's looking a lot cleaner. It's looking like it's coming from one arm. It looks really, really nice. I don't see him becoming a Trae Young or a Steph, but if he can shoot like
30, 35.
Yeah, like let's say 33% on 2 attempts, or like next year, or even something respectable later down the road, that's going to open up a lot of opportunities from him. And if they do want to hold on to Embiid, then maybe Simmons and Embiid can coexist on the floor without sacrificing spacing or really offensive production.
And that's something I was going to get into here because I love the decision to move Ben Simmons to power forward because I know he has all the playmaking ability in the world. I know you want to benefit that at point guard. But there's a reason Braun doesn't play point guard all the time. There's a reason why you move him and have him at power forward, even though he leads the league in assists. You play him where he can benefit the team the most. And I think that you move him to power forward. He's no longer a hindrance from three-point land. He's now a neutral. I think if he can shoot 2 threes a game, which he should be doing he should have been doing from the get-go because the more you shoot, the better you're going to get. I mean, You're not going to make a 3 if you don't shoot one. And shooting 1-3 a game, losing 1 possession a game is not going to kill the team. And I think that this is a great decision that they've made, and I think it's going to be paying off dividends in this roster. I mean, it's assembled quite nicely. They brought in Al Horford. They drafted Matisse Thybulle, who's great defensively. You have guys like Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, Josh Richardson.
Al, I don't like though. I don't think that's a good fit.
It's not a good fit, but it's good playoff experience, and he brings
leadership,
versatility.
Defense, yeah.
And then the problem with moving Ben Simmons down to power forward is now you take Al out of the job and move him to the bench.
Yeah, and you shouldn't be paying 28 million for a bench guy. And Al wasn't even that effective at power forward. But yeah, as you said, his defensive abilities, Ben Simmons will be at, I would think, a greater use of the power forward position. Him and Embiid will make a nasty trio or nasty duo in the paint. And then also now he has the ability to fade off the block into the corner and, kind of develop a rhythm with these corner threes, the shortest possible three that you can take. So, yeah, as you said, I'm liking this Ben Simmons to power forward move.
What do you make of their current point guard situation? Do you think Shake Milton will stick it out at point guard and roll it out of the playoffs? Because if you have Shake Milton at point guard, I no offense to Shake Milton, but I don't think that's a Eastern Conference champion worthy point guard right there.
No, and I don't even have them in my top. I have Miami over them. So, yeah, they're my fifth best team in the East and sixth when everybody is healthy. I have Indiana over them. I've been very low on them, and I think you know that. I've probably said it a couple times. But Shake Milton, he's kind of an inconsistent shooter. He can make a few plays, but he's not the point guard that you want on a championship contending team. Like, if you look at the last contenders, or the last teams that won championships, it's been Kyle Lowry, Stephen Curry, Kyrie Irving, Tony Parker, Jason Kidd. You know what I mean? Like, these are all all-star,
Who's the
all-NBA.
point guard for the Heat?
Mario.
Mario is
Okay, but Mario Chalmers was a bucket. That dude was a
okay.
knockdown. That dude, okay, he was a
I
knockdown.
love that Game of Thrones episode with Mario
Yeah.
Chalmers.
But also, like, Simmons, Embiid, and Tobias Harris are not LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. And,
No, not in any way.
And I get it, Simmons has that playmaking ability, but, LeBron during the Heat, All-NBA, the guy that could defend all five positions, make plays, score, dunk, shoot. Yeah, LeBron was something else before all the dad jokes and hashtag the kid from Akron.
A team that you just mentioned and alluded to, the Indiana Pacers. Depot is back. He was training with the team and he played last night, or played today, scoring 16 points and a plus minus of 10 with a efficiency of 50%. What do you make of this roster, even though they lost to Monte Sabonis? You got Depot, you got Warren, you got Miles Turner, Malcolm Brogdon, Aaron Holiday. Is this an Eastern Conference champion worthy team?
No, once again, no. I think that they could definitely make it to the semis because it's going to be. I feel like it's going to be Boston, Toronto, Milwaukee in the Eastern Conference semis, and then either Philly, Miami, or Indiana. And I think Miami has the best chance out of all those teams. But look, Oladipo's back. He shot 50% from three, grabbed 7 rebounds in his first game back, I believe. So I'm really happy with the progress that he's made. Victor Oladipo is one of my favorite players in the NBA. And when he's fully healthy, when he's in full form, in my opinion, he's the second best shooting guard in the NBA. And then, TJ Warren, also just a bona fide scorer. Miles Turner is finally coming into his own after a pretty inconsistent season. 15 points is solid, but I really wish I could see more impact or more consistent impact on the rebounding end. Brogdon, as you know, excellent player. And then Aaron Holiday. And I like this team, but I think that having Oladipo at the small forward and TJ Warren at the power forward is going to be a big exploitation now that Sabonis is out because you have Aaron Holiday at point guard. And when you're going up against a Kyle Lowry or an Eric Bledsoe or a Kemba Walker, that's going to be kind of tough. And then
I don't think Aaron Holiday is that far off those guys that you just mentioned. I don't think he's that far off of Bledsoe. I mean, if you look at Aaron Holiday as like a pure talent, I don't see him as that far off those players.
But also like he went 0 for 4 from 3, and this is against a Milwaukee defensive scheme that forces you to chuck up tough threes. So if you're inconsistent and rusty from 3, you're going to have a problem against Milwaukee's defense. But more on that later.
I mean, I think the real thing that's bringing down this team is depth. If you look at their bench.
Well, TJ McConnell's kind of solid.
TJ McConnell he's all right, but I mean that's out of your 6-man. I think that you're going to be looking for some more depth. And if you're playing a 9-man rotation, which you or 8-man even in the playoffs. You look at guys like McConnell is not really going to be cutting it. Their leading scorer off the bench last night was Edmund Summer. I don't think that's great. You got the other Holiday brother, Justin Holiday. I mean,
Doug McDermott, TJ Leaf.
It's not the greatest bench if you look at it from a total perspective.
And I also think that, like, TJ Warren at power forward and Miles Turner at being on, like, a slightly smaller side of a center, that's kind of tough when you go up against an Adebayo or an Embiid, Simmons, Giannis, Brook Lopez, Siakam. You know what I mean? Like, there are a lot of talented bigs in the East, and with a 6'8", 6'7", 6'8", offensive-minded TJ Warren, trying to guard Giannis, that's going to be pretty tough.
And they're going to get picked apart eventually for that. I think that Sabonis loss is going to kill them because that shifted their entire lineup down one spot, and that's just going to accentuate the height gap that team has. I mean, Miles Turner, obviously, he's tall, but look at the rest of the team. You're moving Warren down to the 4. You're moving Depot down to the 3, Brogdon down to the 2, and putting Holiday at the 1 from the bench. That's just something that you're not really going to want to see out of a team because you want someone like Brogdon at your point, and I mean, you lose depth, you lose quality in your starting lineup, you lose defensive stability. I think that overall, just losing Sabonis is a huge blow to the team, and it's going to prevent them from being more than just Eastern Conference fodder, which they have been for the back end of 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I mean, forever, actually, the entire history of their career. Go back to the 90s, they were still fodder to the best teams in the East. So I just think this Pacers team had some unfortunate injuries that prevented them from reaching their potential.
Now, finally, or not finally, we have a very special ending, but we talked about the top 3 teams in the East, Boston, Toronto, or Milwaukee. First, I'm going to give you my 2 cents, and then you give me your 2 cents, and then I'll tell you mine. Who do you think is making it out of the East?
Right now, my pick is Boston because I think that if you look at the matchup last year, that Boston, they were outclassed by the superior Milwaukee team. But I think that Milwaukee lost some significant pieces like Malcolm Brogdon last year that is really going to hurt them this season because Bledsoe is not the same caliber of player as Malcolm Brogdon, not even in the slightest. And then you look at Kemba Walker being an addition, better than Kyrie, and Kyrie wasn't even playing that series. So I think this Boston team is well-rounded in scoring, and their team defense is good. They have no one individual standout defender, but they've got great all-around team defense. And I think they've got really good depth pieces that'll cause them to be a title contender because in the playoffs, it's going to be – you had a long break, and I think that having pieces off the bench that's helping you manage minutes more effectively is going to be really beneficial for a team like Boston. And I think that this superior depth and great starting 5 is something that's going to propel them to the championship. I don't know if they're going to be able to defeat any team in the West, but I think that this Boston team has probably the best blend of talent of any team in the East.
Yeah, my pick is different. I wouldn't argue with you on that one, though. Boston is a very good team. I love the way they can rotate their wings from the 2 to the 4. So you can have, imagine having to guard a hot Jason Tatum, a hot Jaylen Brown, and a hot Gordon Hayward, plus Kemba. So they have the offensive firepower, coaching, and team defense to definitely propel them to an Eastern Conference championship.
I take it back. They do have one great defender in Marcus Smart.
Oh yeah, why did I forget Marcus Smart, best defensive guard in the NBA?
Drew Holiday, come on.
Hey, Thinking Basketball made a video on why Marcus Smart is the greatest is the best defensive guard in the NBA, and I did some further research too, and Ben Taylor knows his stuff, so can't argue with him.
I can't argue with that, but I think from watching Drew Holiday on a consistent basis that his defensive class guarding, he's more versatile. He can guard more positions than Smart can, and I think Smart
has been able to fair zone against bigs. He's one of the few guys that just won't stand to get bullied.
Holiday guarded Anthony Davis at one point.
I think Marcus Smart had to guard Anthony Davis in the Lakers game.
They're tied. We could call them a
passing lanes. But yeah, okay.
We'll call it 1A, 1B.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's Boston, Toronto. This is my pick to win the East actually, and I was kind of like cycling through the three teams. I was like, I was on Friday. I was like, I think Milwaukee could do it. I'm kind of high on Milwaukee. And then yesterday I was thinking about it, I'm like, well, Boston's got the scoring. And then today I was like Toronto, and I saw this little cool graphic, and it was that they rely on a star of the least. They have a top 5 defense, top 5 offense.
I mean, I'd argue that you take one player out of Boston, they'd probably be just as fine as if you take Siakam out of Toronto, they'd be worse than if you take Kemba out of Boston.
Well, I think that if you take Siakam out of Toronto, they're definitely not a contender, but I feel like they'd be better than Boston without Tatum. They have depth. They have, in my opinion, the best coach in the East, best coach in the league. They have this whole next man up mentality. They have without Lowry and without Siakam, they still have the second best defense and the 5th best offense in the league with like on-off metrics and net ratings. And like this is an experienced roster. They have shooting, they have defense, they have slim Marc Gasol, and they've been able to play in a big moment literally last year, and they played together. This core has remained intact. Like Ibaka, great shooter for a big man, obviously can block shots. Kyle Lowry is like the epitome of a ceiling raiser, can do everything, does not have a weakness, good leader. Norman Powell, OG Anunoby. Anunoby's one of the most underrated defenders in the league and can still shoot. Gasol, he was able to anchor this team and really provided that push to beat Golden State. And then I'm probably forgetting a couple of guys, but yeah, their whole next man up mentality, their depth, I think all of that.
Fred VanVleet.
Oh, VanVleet, yes. Good shooter. He actually got hurt with a banged knee today, but I think he'll be back in action come playoff time, so I'm excited for that. And I think that they have the best depth in the East. They have the second best defense, still have a top 5 offense. I don't think you can beat that. And I think that's why I have Toronto as my team to come out of the East. They know how to stop Giannis. And really, Siakam's not as good as Tatum, but I would not say that Tatum is miles better than Siakam.
No.
Because you could make the case for Siakam being a better player than Tatum.
No, easily.
Yeah, you can easily make the case for that. He's really stepped it up. He's improved exponentially, and I think all this stuff combined, I'd put my money on Toronto.
I just think it's a team that people are writing off because you look at last year, you see what happened with Kawhi Leonard, and you just take that player off the team. You're like, oh, that roster's not making it to the finals. That roster's not going to win the finals again. But it's a really well-rounded roster that's gotten better without Kawhi. But
yeah,
I just see it's hard to see. I'm taking that media narrative that the loss of Kawhi is just you need that one guy to get you a bucket. And Pascal, I have faith in him, but I don't know if he has the same mentality of Kawhi Leonard. And I think that they can be a conference final team. I just don't see them beating Boston, or I can see them beating Milwaukee. I just can't see them beating Boston.
So they would play Boston in the second round because it's a 2 and a 3 seed. Mm-hmm. So you would say that they would lose
unless something miraculous happens in the seeding
I thought it was like set in stone.
No, it's just there's seeding games. There's 8 seeding games.
Okay.
So yeah. I think those games are going to go into their current records. But
oh really? I thought it was like set in stone except for the like 8 seed team.
No, I think it's seeding games. I think there's just 8 games, 8 more games added to the season.
Well, yeah.
I wish it was just a clean slate fight for the 8 seed.
Yeah. And then, but also, I read somewhere too that Toronto dealt with a few injury problems this year that they've been able to recover from, and that's why I feel like they've benefited the most from COVID. All of their players have been able to recover nicely, and they've still gotten that good chemistry, and they've had players take giant strides like Gasol, as you've seen from the photos. He's now a lot slimmer and more mobile. But there were 44 combined games where at least one of their starters was out. and they still managed to pull a record that was the second best team in the East. And remember, this is still behind Milwaukee, who had a historic regular season that's going to go down in the ages as one of the best of all time. So I feel confident in them, where if they do lose a star, they can still, pull through. They have great chemistry, great coaching, and they stop Giannis. And that's where I feel like Boston's shortcoming will be. They have Daniel Tice starting at center and Enes Kanter off the bench. We know Enes Kanter cannot, defend Giannis or and Daniel Tice, just by being a great defender, is 6'11", or no, 6'8". So imagine a 6'8" Daniel Tice, going up against Embiid, Giannis, Adebayo, all those guys. And I think that lack of interior presence, especially when you have Ibaka, Gasol, and Siakam, I feel like that's going to definitely hinder their championship window.
And I have a question for you. If there was a Jazz, Nuggets, or Pelicans or Grizzlies in each of your conference, do you think that any of those teams could make it out over the top three?
The Nuggets definitely have a shot, but once again, they're like a poor man's Milwaukee. Now, I've been seeing that Mike Conley has stepped up his game.
Oh, that's the
Yeah, we saw with all the floaters and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think out of all those teams, actually, I think the Jazz might have the best shot because I'm not sold on Jamal Murray at all. And then 2-3 years down the line, Grizzlies and Pelicans, of course. I see John Morant and Zion Williamson winning an MVP at least once in their career, both of them respectively. So I feel like they could not now, but down the line, 100%.
And we've arrived at the finale, the grand finale.
Oh yes,
Lou Williams. What are we gonna do with you? I'll leave this one to you. Such a little special subject for you. 10-day quarantine in Atlanta.
Yeah. Lou Williams was he's one of my favorite players in the league. When he was on the Hawks, I'm so sad we didn't have him for longer, because if we had him during that 60-win season as a spark off an already great bench, that would have been so nice, but
it wasn't to be.
Yeah, I'll just play some Marvin's Room tonight, but he managed to go from Orlando all the way back up 6-7 hour drive to Atlanta with Jack Harlow at the Magic City Club. And then he had the audacity today to say that it was his favorite restaurant. This is a strip club. Come on, man.
I don't know how they let him outside the bubble. What was his excuse? What did he say he needed?
I think so. I know Montrezl Harrell left for Family Matters. I think Beverly did too. And then it was this. First of all, I think it was unexcused. But second of all, he said Family Matters. I saw the ESPN notification a few days ago, and it was he's left for Family Matters. I'm okay, he'll be back for the playoffs. But yeah, no. Jack Harlow, I've lost a lot of respect for him on that one. Shouldn't have posted that.
I think the funny thing is that you see Zion got a 4-day quarantine while Lou Will got a 10-day quarantine. I mean,
Wait, did Sean Holmes get a 14-day quarantine for stepping 50 feet outside to get a Postmates?
Okay, I think that they need to rethink their structure of quarantine, because clearly Lou Will, what he did was clearly getting exposed versus what Zion did. He got regular tests every day, and Rashawn Holmes literally just getting some food.
Yeah.
So that'll wrap it up for today's episode of the Triple Threat Podcast. If you liked, you know what to do. We're not going to be that kind of channel, but do what you have to. And we'll see you next week.